Hello everyone, and welcome to week 5 of English 120. This week, I'm going to be introducing your research project. We're going to discuss What Life Means to Me, an essay by Jack London, found in the portable Jack London. You're also going to, and you're going to discuss that essay, then you're also going to, after thinking about possible topics and learning about your project topic form, you're going to brainstorm about possible research projects using techniques introduced in the Bedford Researcher. You're also going to be signing up for conferences. These will take place during week 6, and filling out and turning in your project topic form, your worksheet for a research project timeline, and worksheet of assignment analysis questions, which will be turned in also in week 6. So let's begin by talking a little bit about What Life Means to Me, the essay by Jack London you'll be reading in the portable Jack London Reader. Please think about the following questions and use evidence from the text to support your answers. You'll post your answer, as always, by Saturday this week, Saturday at 11:59 p.m. Please make sure you respond to at least 3 of your peers by the following Tuesday at 11:59 p.m. So what was Jack London's background and his initial perception of the upper class when he begins this essay? What is compound interest and how does he use it in the essay? What is oyster pirating, and what did Jack London learn from his experiences as an oyster pirate about the business ladder? As an added bonus, you might want to look up the history of oyster farming in San Francisco Bay and Oakland. It was very, very popular during the time that Jack London lived. What is the abyss? We did see this referred to not only in this essay, but also in essays from last week. What does Jack London mean by that? And where is the quotation in the text? What compelled London to sell more muscle and become a vendor of brains on page 478? How did he do it? What does he discover once he finally makes a decent living and is welcomed into the upper class, or the parlor floor of society on page 481, as he calls it? Is he satisfied with where he is or not, and why? Why do you think he wrote this essay? Think about how old he was when he wrote this essay. You can see when it was published at the bottom of the page, and you can look up when Jack London was born in the biography that I originally gave to you. It's also in our portable Jack London Reader. Think about how old was he, what was his life like at that time, and do you agree with his statements? Why or why not? He's pretty critical of the upper class, and I'd like you to think about it. Do you agree with it or not? Alright guys, so this week I'm going to introduce to you all of the rest of the assignments, basically the big assignments that you're going to be working on for the rest of the semester. The first assignment in this progression is your project topic form. You'll be working on that beginning this week, and you'll be turning it in at the end of week 6. Your worksheet for a research project timeline and worksheet of assignment analysis questions, those will be turned in also during week 6 for a total of 20 participation points. Your first presentation will happen during week 9, and that's where we're going to begin to talk about The Valley of the Moon, the novel that we're going to be reading by Jack London, and that will be due during week 9. Your research prospectus, which is a much longer report where you look into the conversation you're going to be joining, you write an extensive history of the topic. That's due in week 10, and it's worth 100 points. Then you'll turn in a list of academic sources. These will be due by week 11. It's worth 25 points. And once those are approved, you can begin working on your annotated bibliography, which is due in week 12 and worth 100 points. Your annotated bibliography is where you'll look at each of those sources, put them in MLA format, and then analyze the source as to whether it's a valid source that you can use in your research paper. Then your research essay, draft 1 will be due in week 14, draft 2 will be due in week 16. There will also be peer reviews and self-reviews during that time. Then your final presentation on your research paper is due the last week of class. So let's talk a little bit about the project topic form. It's worth 25 points. By your conference, You should have an idea of what you want to be writing about. Use the pre-writing you've done in order to discover a topic you'd like to spend the rest of the semester studying. Refer back to the Bedford Researcher, pages 18 through 21, for pre-writing techniques, or from my lecture a couple of weeks ago where I talked about pre-writing techniques. Your research project will be on a topic or theme found in the Valley of the Moon, or in any of the readings that we are reading about Jack London that you can compare to modern times in order to better understand the time in which Jack London was writing and how his work is still relevant today. The details about your project topic form. Your project topic form must be at least one full page and no more than 3 pages in length, and it must be typed in Times New Roman 12-point font and placed in MLA format. You must introduce the topic that you'll be writing about and briefly describe the conversation about the topic you will be joining. Hint, you will need to do some basic research about your topic using reference materials, so I highly recommend giving yourself some time to go to the library. How does your topic relate to Jack London and our class? How do you think this topic or theme has changed over the past 100 years? Describe your interest in the topic. Why did you choose this topic? Finally, specifically discuss possible sources. Please note, for your research paper, you will need to use at least 6 academic sources. How will you go about doing your research? And a huge hint here is to not say, I'm going to just go to the library. You got to go into much more detail. The due date is a draft at your conference, or at least an idea of what you're going to be working on in our conferences. Bring it so we can talk about it. And then the final project topic form is due at the end of week 6. Here's some possible topics. You're not limited to just these topics. Like I said, you can come up with your own topic, but here's some possibilities. Jack London's biography. Remember all the disputes that there are over his death, over his father, over whether he was faithful to his wives. There's all kinds of ideas about Jack London's biography. Jack London's writing how he was a writer for the working class versus the upper class. Jack London's many homes. Jack London State Historic Park. The history of the park, how it was donated land from Jack London's family, and how it's gone through. It shut down as a state park and then was brought back as a nonprofit. Charmian London, Jack London's second wife. Prize fighting versus modern day fighting. Prize fighting was the fighting that took place in the early 1900s, and Billy in the Valley of the Moon is a professional. He's the main character in the Valley of the Moon, and he's a professional prize fighter. So this topic will come up a lot in the next few months. Sweatshops in the early 1900s versus nowadays. Same thing, child labor. The role of women in society in the early 1900s versus the role of women in modern day. The women in the workplace, how women, what kind of jobs were available to women in the early 1900s versus today. Sustainable farming methods. In the Valley of the Moon, the book we're going to be reading, Saxon and Billy, the main characters, have a really tough time in Oakland, and they leave the city and go out on the road in search of finding a beautiful home to begin their new lives, and they want to have a farm. So they go from farm to farm and learn different farming techniques. One possible topic about that would be sustainable farming techniques, what they were like then versus now, or just farming methods from the early 1900s versus today. Another possible topic is naturalism, how Jack London writes about naturalism, or the 1906 earthquake versus a modern earthquake. You can look at what San Francisco was like before the 1906 earthquake. It was a completely different town, and how it changed after the earthquake. If you look at socialism, capitalism, strikes and unions and riots, those will all take place in the Valley of the Moon. You can look at the Klondike and the gold rush that happened there. You can also look at the Eskimo people who lived there and look at the culture that they had in the early in the early 1900s versus their culture today. You can look at Kelly's Army, the movement of Kelly's Army for the underemployed. You can look at that in regards to what's happened recently with the 1% versus the 99%. The working class in the early 1900s versus now. Jack London's nonfiction writing, his years as a reporter. The political scene in the early 1900s versus the political scene these days. Marriage in the early 1900s versus now. Or environmental concerns of the early 1900s versus today. Finally, there is another topic that if you're really interested in Hawaii, Charmian and Jack London spent a great deal of time in Hawaii during their lives, and Jack London wrote a lot about Molokai and the leper colony, and if that's a topic that interests you, that's also another available topic. So how do you get started on a research project? You're going to choose a topic, and you're going to take ownership of that topic and get really invested. Research writing involves learning about a topic, taking a position on that topic, and sharing your position with readers. Learn how to identify good sources, how to actively read, evaluate, and take notes from these sources, and how to use the arguments you find in them. Use a research log to keep track of your sources. Like I said earlier, you want to have some sort of a notebook or something. I use a spiral notebook to keep track of all the sources that you find. You're going to actively read those sources as you find them and take notes on them. Use the research you've done to help you develop a position, an arguable stance on the topic that you're studying. So these are the topics that you're thinking about. So once you identify a topic, then you're going to do research to try to find a position on that topic, an arguable stance you're going to take on that topic. Your topic must be a subject of debate, discussion, and discovery. If you're going to you have to find something that you can actually compare for a reason. By writing about this topic, you will be engaging in a conversation. Start by analyzing the assignment. Choose a topic that interests you. So for your active reading, for your research journal this week, you're going to complete in the Bedford Researcher the little green box marked My Research Project on pages 20 to 21. It asks you to go through the following, it has a list of questions there that I'd like you to complete all the questions in regards to brainstorming, free writing, looping, clustering. And I'd like you to go through several different topics to try to find the best topic for you. Remember, you're making a semester-long commitment to this topic, so make sure you choose wisely. We're also going to be setting up conferences this week. The conferences will not take place this week, they'll take place during week 6. Please choose a time slot and fill out the conference sign-up sheet wiki with your name and contact information. You'll actually go in and edit the wiki to write in your name and your contact information. You are expected to attend your conference in person. My office is in 1031A. That's in the 1000 building, 2nd floor. The 1000 building is behind the 800 building on campus. If you can't attend in person, you need to contact me in advance and set up an alternative method, such as Skype, for us to have a conference. There needs to be a way that I can visually check your active reading notes. What you need to bring to your conference is your completed project topic form or a draft of it for us to discuss, all of your active reading notes. That means notes on every single thing that we've read for this class. And I will give you back notes about your first essay, and you must revise this essay based on our conference and turn it in during week 7. Alright guys, that's it for this week. Next week you will be reading, we'll have conferences, so it will be an amended week. You'll just read reports on the James J. Jeffries Jack Johnson Championship fight. That's a prize fighting fight that Jack London covered as a reporter. You'll turn in your project topic forms. You'll also turn in your 2 forms called worksheet for a research project timeline and worksheet of assignment analysis questions. Alright guys, that's it for this week. Please let me know if you have any questions, and I look forward to meeting so many of you in person during our conferences.